I'd like to thank all of you for coming this afternoon. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to attend this webinar. This will be covering Mobile Inspector, and your instructor and guide through this amazingly interesting topic will be Ricky Jeffries. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A at the bottom, and Ricky will review your questions and answer them at the end of his presentation. That way we give everybody a chance to get their questions in. All righty. Ricky, I will turn it over to you, sir.
All right, thanks so much, Douglas, and thank you guys all for joining us today. Nearly 200 participants, so that's extraordinary. I do want to thank you guys all ahead of time for your time, your attention, and your interest. Also want to give a special shout out to Travis Driggers at South Carolina for putting this all together. I'm excited to walk through Mobile Inspector with you all. So let me go ahead and share my screen. This entire time, my screen will be shared, so don't look at me, look at my screen that I'm sharing. And if I could just get a couple thumbs up to let me know that you guys can see that. Okay, Terry, that will suffice. Excellent. All right, so once again, welcome to our webinar. This is a webinar specifically on Mobile Inspector for the South Carolina Department of Transportation. As Terry said, my name is Ricky Jeffries. I am the product manager for the Mobile Inspector application. We kindly ask that you guys, and there was already kind of a question on this, we go ahead and hold your questions to the end of this webinar. Use that Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen to get those questions in, and just submit those as we go. That way you don't forget about them, and we'll try to get as much of them addressed as possible at the end. The focus of this webinar is going to be on the functionality of Mobile Inspector with Ashtaware projects. I do want to point out, though, that much of what we cover today can be applied to Appia users. As I understand, we do have a couple Appia users in attendance as well. So I did want to just make that point. So let's go ahead and get started with what Mobile Inspector is. Mobile Inspector is a daily work report tool designed to help inspectors enter data directly from the job site. That's in real time, directly as they observe it. That data is then seamlessly synced back to Ashtaware project, and we'll walk through all of that together. This application was designed with a couple of things in mind. I want to point those out: simplicity, utility, and mobility. And I want to kind of walk through each one of those briefly. Simplicity, Mobile Inspector really streamlines your work. When using Mobile Inspector, you'll notice a couple things. There's no need to log into the application. Instead, as soon as you launch the application, you have immediate access to all of the contracts that you have in the application, and you can easily begin to start recording your inspections right away. You'll also notice that there's no loading or any rendering as you navigate through the completion of your report and you save your progress along the way. You don't have to wait for anything to load and save in that aspect. Speaking to utility, Mobile Inspector is a scaled down extension of Ashtaware project. So this is going to offer inspectors only the most necessary data fields to capture in the field, just to try to help to make your job a little more efficient. In addition, the application does offer offline functionality. So data can be entered and saved while working on a remote job site where there's areas of intermittent connectivity. And lastly, mobility. Mobile Inspector is designed for phones and tablets. This is eliminating the need to carry around perhaps a tough book on site, if that's something you're currently using, or maybe you record your observations on paper only to manually transcribe your data into a computer back in your truck or your trailer. All that goes away. You can easily pull your phone or tablet out, record your inspections in real time. Another thing about Mobile Inspector is it's a progressive web application. That means it looks and feels like a native application, but instead of downloading it from an app store that you might be familiar with now, you're going to use the browser on your phone or your tablet to navigate to the link, the URL link for Mobile Inspector. And the South Carolina DOT will provide that for you if they haven't already. Once you navigate to Mobile Inspector, you're going to dock the application to your home screen. This will give you that tile, like any other app you currently have on your phone or tablet, that represents Mobile Inspector. In addition, docking the application not only makes access to Mobile Inspector easier, you tap it, it launches, you're ready to rock and roll, but it also reinforces data integrity within the application. South Carolina DOT will be delivering a resource that we are also helping them create that will assist you in the step-by-step process of docking something like this to your home screen if you're not familiar with that. Let's now turn our attention to the screen I'm sharing for Mobile Inspector. Once you arrive, you're going to be prompted to accept terms and conditions before you can generate that device ID you see here in the middle. The terms and conditions can be found right here under the terms of use. Once you select that, about 3/4 of the way down the page, it's going to ask you if you accept or decline these terms. I've already done that, so you can't see that here today, but this is roughly where it would be. Once you accept the terms and conditions, you can generate this device ID. From there, you're going to take that device ID and you're going to provide it to your Ashware project administrator so they can associate that device ID to your user. One thing I want to point out here that's extremely important. Once you dock your application and you generate that device ID, you do not want to delete this application. You don't want to remove it from your home screen. You don't want to clear your device history. This will cause you to lose your current instance of Mobile Inspector. It will potentially cause you to lose any data for any reports you were in draft on, that's reports you were in progress on, but you haven't synced out yet. We don't want to lose any of that. If you find yourself in the need to, clear your device history for other reasons, or maybe you're getting a new device, maybe you're getting a new phone or a tablet, please work with South Carolina DOT to ensure all of your draft in progress reports are locked, they're synced, the data has been sent back to Ashware project, and they will work with you on getting you a new Mobile Inspector instance on your new device. Now, one more thing I want to cover before we start walking through Mobile Inspector is I want to briefly discuss contract authority and its use at South Carolina. And for that, I'm going to pull up Ashware project. And I'm going to drag this over if it'll allow me. There we go. And here I am on the contract administration screen for the contract we're going to be working with today. And down here we have contract authority. Now, South Carolina uses primarily administrative office authority when granting users access to contracts. However, Mobile Inspector does not use that. Mobile Inspector requires users to have contract-specific contract authority for the device to receive each individual contract. So you may have access to many contracts within Ashware projects. You will need to give yourself contract-specific contract authority on the contracts that you plan to be working with Mobile Inspector on the job site. So if you're not familiar with this area and contract authority, we have this new button here. And when you select new, it's going to add a new record. You simply put your user in here. So for myself, I'll just start typing in my last name and select that. And for role, you're going to use that Mobile Inspector role. This is the role South Carolina uses with Mobile Inspector. So you want to select this Mobile Inspector role. You're going to give it an effective date, and you're going to set the status to active. Now, I've already done this, so I'm not going to hit save. You can see that up here, but you would save this, and now you have contract-specific contract authority. The bridge process at South Carolina runs every 15 minutes. So once you do this, you're going to have to wait roughly 15 minutes, and then you would sync your device and pull that change in. And we'll talk about syncing in just a moment. Once you're complete with your contract in Mobile Inspector, say that you no longer need to see it in Mobile Inspector, you've moved on to a new contract, you don't want to, have it taking up any space there anymore, you would simply come back into Ashware project. You're going to expire this contract-specific contract authority record and hit save. The next time that bridge runs and the next time you sync your device, that contract will be removed from Mobile Inspector. All right, let's jump back over to Mobile Inspector now and start taking a detailed look at the application. As I said, before I even begin, I want to sync my device. We just added contract authority in Asheware project. We need to bring those changes in, right? So I'm going to hit my hamburger icon here in the top left. You'll see down here we have sync, and we're going to hit sync data. Now, theoretically, if I didn't already have this contract, that's when this contract would come in. And I highly encourage you, I can't recommend this enough. This is a habit you definitely want to be in when you're using Mobile Inspector. Syncing your device before you get started with your work that day will ensure several things, in addition to bringing in any contracts you just gave yourself authority on. It's going to bring in any new items that maybe were added via change order since the last time you synced your device, any quantities that have been posted to an item. It'll update the quantities in Mobile Inspector that you'll see. If any equipment or personnel were added to this contract, you're going to want to get that pulled in, or maybe a new material set was added. You know, anything like that, you want to be working with the most up-to-date information. You want to sync your device before you get started. Terry, if you can go ahead and mute yourself, if you don't mind. Over here on the left-hand side, we have our contracts pane. This is where you're going to find all of the contracts available to you. Again, these are the contracts you gave yourself contract-specific contract authority for, okay? When we select our contract, we're able to get an overview of all of the items on this contract. We're able to add a report, and then we can see essentially what has been done on this contract by us over the last 30 days. So you see I have a mixture there of some successfully synced reports. I have a report that has an error. I have a rejected report. Don't worry, we're going to walk through all of those things together. Let's start with the items. When I select items, you'll see that we get an overview of all of the items on the contract. You can easily start searching for anything. So again, this is important. Let's say you're waiting for that change order for a certain item, and let's say you're looking for a specific concrete item. As soon as I start typing here, it immediately starts to filter. It comes in handy if you have hundreds of items on this contract. You can just quickly go take a look at them. It will also filter based on any of those columns you see. So I started typing in the item. I can easily start typing in the supplemental description. I can even start typing in by unit. It'll start filtering all of those for me. All right, now we're ready to start a report. So let's go ahead and hit add report. And once a daily work report is generated, we do begin on the report details tab. The date field here will default to today's date, but that can be changed if needed. So just a simple date picker here. You tap the date you need, click OK, and you'll get whatever date that you select there. We're going to go ahead and put some weather information in here just to kind of show you how simple this is on your phone or tablet. When you select a field like weather that has a list of values to choose from, you'll easily just be able to tap with your finger and select that value. For temperature, your keyboard's going to pop up. Real easy just to put the number in there for that temperature value. Your keyboard will pop up for values like this as well. And that's to, again, if you have a lot of options here, to quickly start typing in, CLO, and it'll start filtering that for you. Okay. All right, coming down to attachments. Mobile Inspector does allow you to put many different types of attachments on your report. You're going to find this here, and you're going to also find this on item postings. And the types of attachments you can add are, PDF files, Excel files, and photo files. When adding a photo from your phone or tablet, you'll get an option if you're familiar with other types of, I don't know if it's Facebook or Instagram that you might use, but it's going to ask you, do you want to take a photo right here in the moment or choose from your device library? So Mobile Inspector will give you that same ability to do that. And once a photo is added, I'm going to go ahead and just quickly add a photo. You'll see that we can give it a title. We can give it a description down here below. And we can also crop and mark up this photo. So if I select crop, if you're familiar with, cropping functionality, you could draw your corners in and just really focus in on whatever it is you're trying to point out here. And once you like your changes, you're going to hit this check mark, and that's going to save those changes. Next, you can mark these photos up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click my markup tool. Along the top here, we have all of our markup functionalities. So very straightforward. If you've ever marked something up before, you can, frame a border around something. You can draw an arrow to things. You can put text somewhere. And you can even, highlight an area you want to highlight, draw attention to it. Once you're satisfied with your inputs here, go ahead and hit this check mark. It'll lock all those in, and now you have a marked up photo as well. You can also, you're not limited to just one. You can add multiple attachments if you need to here, or if there's, again, specific to your item, you can add them directly on the item posting, as we'll see in just a moment. Last but not least on this page, we have remarks. South Carolina does have a required remark. They require the general remark. And what Mobile Inspector will do is it'll bubble that up there for you. So you could see I didn't have to hit add remark here. This remark was already generated for me. And you could see it's required here on the right-hand side. And there's that general type already generated for us. You do have to give a remark here. And don't worry if you don't. The lock validator will catch that for you, and we'll walk through what the lock validator does as well. So we're just going to satisfy that remark. Come up here, and we're going to use our save icon to save everything we just did on this page. I highly recommend using that save icon once you complete each activity within your report. Just a great habit to be in as you navigate through each of these tabs. All right, up next, let's go to DWR notes. This is very straightforward. Nothing groundbreaking here. Just allows inspectors the ability to go into a little more detail about something they want to go into on their daily work report. One thing I just want to point out here, we give you the opportunity to add 5 of these if needed. After the 5th one, this button does become disabled, so it's not broken. We just stop allowing you to add more notes after 5. Mainly, it's the data reason. There's 4,000 characters you can add here. 5 notes, 20,000 characters. It's a short novel, so we did cut it off at 5. South Carolina has indicated they also do plan to use this area if there is a circumstance where they reject your daily work report and Asheware project to send back to you for any revisions. They're going to use this to send a message to you. So this is a little bit of a two-way tool in a way with Asheware project. They can type a note in here, and when that bridge runs and this does get sent back to you, that note will display. Again, I'll show you that in that rejected report a little later on. That way you know why they kicked it back. You can go ahead and make that revision, delete the note once you're done, and then resync that back to Asheware project. All right, let's go ahead and save, even though I didn't add any content to these notes, and we'll go to our contractors on site. Also, very minimal tab as well. Once we add a contractor on site, the contractor field must be satisfied. And notice that if we add the record here, but we don't satisfy this required field, we do get that error icon. And you're going to see this throughout the system, pretty much on every record that you add. If there's something not satisfied, we're going to let you know about it. To talk about that lock validator, again, if I miss this and I navigate away and I try to go lock this report in the future to sync it out, we're going to prevent you from doing that. We're going to list here everything that you have missed that's required. That way you don't have any errors in the bridge when you sync this. So we kind of stop you right here in your tracks and let you know you got to satisfy these fields. And maybe it was added by mistake. So you don't have to satisfy it completely. You can just delete the record if needed. Hit save. That error is going to go away. One functional aspect I do want to note here, go ahead and give this a prime, is that if payroll is not required, but you do put some hours in here for some reason, we'll automatically override that. And that field does get disabled. So it's one or the other. Either payroll is not required or you're going to put some hours in there. One last thing here is something that, is super simple, but just another way Mobile Inspector is trying to aid you. You don't have to list out all your contractors on site here like an Asheware project. You can literally put none here and you can still do your item posting with maybe a prime contractor. You can indicate a sub on your equipment and maybe an additional sub on your personnel while never putting anybody on site. Once you sync your report to Ashore Project, we'll automatically fill that in for you. So again, just another way to try to help aid this process for you guys as much as possible, streamline that work, make it more efficient for you. And to demonstrate that, I'm just going to put, actually, I'm going to remove this. I'm going to put nothing on here for now. And we'll put a prime on our posting and some subs in our equipment and personnel, and you'll see how that all comes back into Ashore Project. All right, let's move on to our item posting. And I imagine this is where most of your time is going to be spent, so we're going to spend a decent amount of time here ourselves. So once we add a posting, again, you'll see we have a couple required fields, and now we have something kind of new, a conditional requirement down there on the bottom. So we'll speak to that in just a moment. Going back to that sort and filtering ability that we saw in the items, same thing here on your item posting, right? You could start typing in an item, that way you don't have to scroll through the hundreds of items that might be here. And if you're trying to look for a hot in place recycle, you could just start typing that. It's going to come up there for you. In addition, Mobile Inspector is going to filter out any contractor that does not have this item assigned to them. So if I select this and I go to get my contractor, I only have one to choose from, right? So we just try to make it easy, make sure there's no mistakes here. Go ahead and remove this. As you can see, we have way more than one contractor here. So there's a dynamic filtering happening in the background to where if you pick a contractor first too, and then try to go to your item, you're going to get only the items that are available to this contractor. Let's go ahead and stick with our first one here. And I'll go ahead and select that prime. Quantity, pretty straightforward. These are those amounts I was referring to back when I said how important it is to sync your device before you begin your day. That way you see your most up-to-date quantities as well. So that's one of those areas I was referring to. Moving to material set. This is going to be based on the item you select. So if you're not familiar with that, whatever item you have selected, if there's material sets available for that item, that's what's going to be displayed here for you to choose. And now we have our conditionally required fields. So for these conditional requirements, it's exactly what it sounds like. Only one of these needs to be satisfied, either location or some stationing data. So you'll see as soon as I start putting in my location information, I have now satisfied my other one, and that goes, that goes away. Talking about location a little further, we do have the ability to add a geotag here. So this geotag will give you a somewhat precise latitude and longitude coordinate for your location. A couple things to point out here. One, this will not satisfy that conditional requirement. So if I go ahead and remove my location, you'll see that it is still required. The other thing to point out here is on your phone or tablet, if you have never used any sort of location services, you will probably get prompted to enable those, okay? So you can, depending on your device, you could probably enable it right there in the app, or you'll have to go to your settings and then go to Mobile Inspector and enable your location services. Let's go ahead and add this back here so we are able to lock this later. And down below, we have our stationing information, our XYZ spatial fields if needed. We have an area to put in comments. Every tab following this has an area to put in comments. One thing to point out here is on your phone or tablet, this will support speech to text, voice to text. I'm currently on a desktop, so I can't show you that right now. But when you tap on comments and your keyboard displays to start putting that comment in, if you have a speech to text or voice to text button on that keyboard, it will allow you to speak into your tablet or phone. It will translate that for you and put that right there in your comment as well. If you do have an attention, comments are required. This is pretty straightforward, consistent with Ashore Project. And then lastly, that place to put attachments directly on your item posting. Same as before, you could put Excel, PDF, photos. If you add a photo, you can crop it and mark it up. You can also add multiple if needed. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up and I'm going to hit save. And we're going to move on to our equipment tab. And you're probably getting the hang of this by now. If you have a piece of equipment you want to add, you have to hit the add record button. Now we do get a required field for our contractor. So let's go ahead and pick a sub. And then we have a couple of conditional requirements. So we have contract vendor equipment. This is going to be equipment specifically associated to the vendor, and it's an asset that's specifically associated to this contract. Or you have that generic equipment that's coming directly from that reference data. We just need to satisfy one of these, and that'll go away. Below that is any fields that you are observing in the moment, or any expectations that South Carolina DOT has for you to put data into. All right, so I'm not going to walk through all those. Very straightforward. Let's go ahead and hit save. We'll jump to personnel. We'll look at one more tab because these do get, they're very similar. They're all the same thing, just capturing different types of data here. We're going to go ahead and add personnel. I do want to add a third different type of contractor here so we can see how those come in. And again, we have some conditional requirements. You do just need to satisfy one of these. All right, so before we wrap up this daily work report, there's a couple of functional things that I just want to walk through before we jump over to our sync tab. So one of those is, if you've noticed, every time we've added a record, they've been added to a collapsible panel. So that's really that's a really big benefit to you guys if you're putting a bunch of different items on your daily work report, a bunch of different pieces of equipment, and you want a quick overview without having to expand every single panel of what's been done. You can simply just come back and see what was on that panel. So for example, I know I only have one item posting here, but let's come back to personnel. Let's quickly add a couple others here. All right, and we'll just give this some information, just real quick, some arbitrary information. And you'll see that you have a nice overview of what is in each of these panels without the need to expand every single one of them. So again, saving you some time, keeping you up to date with everything you put on this daily work report. That way you can just quickly look and say, hey, did I do this? Oh yeah, I did. I'm ready to lock and sync this out. Going back to those error indicators, I just want to point out that, as you could see, we have our conditionally required field here. But if I didn't satisfy that, you'll see that we have our error indicator right here. If I were to navigate away from that, or even just hit the save button, we elevate an error indicator right there on the tab. And we also have error indicators on the report itself and the contract. So essentially, we just want to breadcrumb you right back to the issue without you having to do a guess and check when you have a bunch of different records. So we tell you exactly which contract has a problem. If you're working with many, that's helpful. Same thing with exactly which report, exactly which tab, exactly which record. That way you can open this and say, oh, I didn't satisfy my conditional requirement. And if that wasn't enough and you didn't catch it there, like I said, when you go to lock and sync this report out, the validator on lock will catch it. It's going to let you know, hey, you're missing this. It's not smart enough to tell you where. That's why we put all of those different error indicators to let you know exactly where you're missing this at. Let's go ahead and delete all these. We don't need them. I just did that for the sake of demonstrating all the collapsible panel functionality and that error indicator functionality. Two other things here. You can copy your report. So let's say we're done with what we have. I'm going to go ahead and save this so that error goes away. Let's say we're done. Perhaps we've already synced this out. We want to make a copy of this for tomorrow, or it is tomorrow, and we're ready to make a copy. This icon right next to lock is that copy icon. Go ahead and select that. It's going to copy your report, bring over some of that data that you had on your previous report. And the last icon up here we haven't talked about is this trash can. I showed you how to delete individual records that you may have added and not needed. This is how you delete an entire report. So if we don't need this copy we just made, we can go ahead and hit this trash icon, remove that report completely. We still have the one we were just working on today. All right, now that we've completed our report, we're ready to lock it and head over to our sync page. So let's go ahead and lock this report. And now we're ready to go to our sync tab. All right, so The sync page of Mobile Inspector displays your reports in various different stages, right? So starting at the top, we have errored reports. These are going to be reports that were synced to Ashware Project. They encountered an error during the sync process and were sent back to your device to be corrected and resynced. When accessing an error report, Mobile Inspector sometimes will identify what that message is, and in some cases will identify where the error is using those icons. I say in some cases because not all errors have a validation message in the bridge. So you will want to work with South Carolina if you do see that you've synced a report that has never successfully synced, which we'll talk about in a moment. But in our case here, for a perfect example, let's go ahead and open this errored report, and you'll see Ashware Project in this instance has a custom rule for that weather field. So Mobile Inspector does not display custom rules that have been added by the agency, but they will get caught when you sync it. So there's that message being sent back to the user saying this value for weather is required, and sure enough, we don't have one here. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and hit the X, dismiss the error, add in our weather value. We can lock this report, and we're ready to sync this report out now. Returning back to our sync tab, the next bucket would be those rejected reports. So these are reports that were successfully synced to Ashware Project, but they were rejected by the office and sent back to you to be corrected and resynced. And I talked a little bit about how DWR notes can be leveraged for this. In the case that they're not, we do encourage you to contact your agency administrator to rectify your report, to understand why it was rejected so you can fix it and send it back to them. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. I can select it directly from here. Let's go take a look at our note that came back from Ashware Project, and we see, please update your weather value. Cloudy was indicated, but rainfall was recorded. So let's go ahead and take a look, and sure enough, I do see I indicated a rainfall amount, but I said it was cloudy. So let's go ahead and unlock this report. It's going to let me know that any changes made here will overwrite in Ashware Project. So we're going to go ahead and unlock that. Let's go ahead and change this to rain greater than 0.25. I am going to come to my DWR note. I no longer need it. I used it for its purpose and made my change. So I can go ahead and delete this. We can lock this report, and that will get brought down here to our locked reports, just like our other ones. Locked reports, as you may now realize, are daily work reports that have been locked and are ready to be synced to Ashware Project. You just have not done that yet. So it is a two-step process to get your data to Ashware Project. You have to lock the report, and then you have to hit the Sync Data tab right here. Draft reports, this is a daily work report you have started but have not locked yet, essentially, right? So that's very straightforward. And then synced reports. Let's go ahead and take a look what that looks like. When I hit Sync Data, all three of these locked reports are going to drop down into our synced reports. We're going to get an icon that has revolving arrows within a cloud. That's letting us know we have synced these reports. They have not successfully come into Ashware Project yet. Once they do, they will turn to this cloud icon with a check mark. Okay. I indicated earlier that South Carolina runs their bridge every 15 minutes or so. So depending on where that bridge cycle is in that process, you do have an opportunity to pull this back if you realize you've made a mistake. So you see this back arrow here. We can simply hit this back arrow, pull this back. It'll become a draft report again. And that's because they have not been picked up by the bridge yet. Once they do, you can't pull it back. The only way to get it back is if one, it errors out. That should not happen too often. The real way to get it back is if the agency rejects it and sends it back to you for revisions. Okay, so we synced out what we worked on today. I did talk about Mobile Inspector's ability to capture data while working offline. It's very important that I stress you will need a connection in order to sync your reports, though. So you can work offline, you can capture all your data. It's going to hold and store that for you. But to get that data out of Mobile Inspector to Ashware Project, you will need a connection, and you will need to hit sync data. It won't be enough to hit sync data while you don't have a connection, because when you do get a connection, it's not going to just automatically do it for you. You have to hit sync data while you have a connection. So we went ahead and synced that. While that is before we just talk through our last little topic here, I do want to go ahead and just run my bridge. That way, while we're talking, this report is getting brought into Ashware project, and we're not wasting any time. And so what I want to briefly discuss now is what you don't see here, or what you will not see here while you're working in Mobile Inspector. You will only see DWRs that you yourself have created, either in Mobile Inspector or in Ashware project. So if I create a report on this project, also in Ashware project, once I sync my device in the future, I will see that report here in Mobile Inspector. I can't do anything with it, but I will be able to see it. But if somebody else does, you won't see their reports. You can't see reports from other inspectors. You will only be able to see your own. In the event that you are a user that may have multiple devices, so you have Mobile Inspector on your phone, you also have a tablet, those will be two different instances of Mobile Inspector. They will carry two different device IDs respectively. However, they will both be associated to you, the user in Ashware project. You can have multiple devices associated to one user. What happens there is you will see the same contract on both devices. You will see any successfully synced reports that you've done on one device. You'll eventually see that on the other one. And of course, anything you've created in Ashware project for that contract, we'll see on both. What you can't do is you can't record work on the same daily work report in both. So if I have a draft report on my phone and then I come back 2 hours later with my tablet, that draft report's not going to be in my tablet, right? You won't be able to cross work like that. This is very important to point out if you are one of those users with multiple devices, because in the event that a report is rejected by the office and sent back to you, it has to be corrected on the device that submitted it, okay? If you go to unlock that report and a device that didn't submit it, it's going to let you know you can't do that. So you're going to have to revise those reports on the ones that submitted it. All right, that's my spiel on what you're not going to see here. Before we jump over to Ashware project, I just want to mention if you find yourself at any time needing a quick reference on anything we talked about today, in addition to a guide we're working with South Carolina on to have at your disposal for Mobile Inspector, we also have our help tab down here in the middle. So this help tab will help you with any topics, essentially everything we talked about today, from those icons, what they mean, to a couple different, distinguishable functionalities within the product. And I do want to point out that we are reworking this page to make it a little more digestible. I understand it looks like a lot of text here at the moment. So be on the lookout for this to update and be a little more readable and digestible to the user. Okay. All right, so our report should have synced successfully by now. So let's jump back into Ashware project. I'm going to come to my daily work reports. And here's that 725 report we just created together. And really what I want to show you here, I don't need to show you all the different data that has come in, although you can clearly see that here on our general tab, which is the report details tab in Mobile Inspector. But I want to show you, we didn't put any contractors on site, but we did select quite a few. We automatically put that there for you. And that's how that comes back into Ashware project. Okay. All right. That does conclude everything I plan to talk about today, right at the time that I plan to stop talking about it. So at this moment, I'm going to check the Q&A and see what you guys have been sending. Brett, I'm only calling you out because I'm not sure if your question is fully written out. What is the likelihood an auto sync function is added in the future? It's the second part of this question. I'm not sure what you're asking. If you want to just resubmit that part. Auto sync, we don't have a TMR currently on the books for that. Travis, if you're listening, if that's something your users find they need, I encourage you to submit the TMR. It does look better when it comes from an agency as opposed to myself. I'll answer that by saying anything is possible. It depends on what you mean by auto sync. We want the user to have the ability to sync when they're ready. Okay, we don't, sometimes, they might start a report in the morning, but they don't finish it till the evening. We don't want to control how that data syncs back to Ashware project if they're not ready for it yet. There has been some discussion on a more of a real-time sync where essentially as you add data into a field and you go to another tab, that data starts to come into Ashware project, but we aren't there yet at the moment. Yes, you can start with a copied report like an Ashware project to save time. Absolutely. Highly encourage you to use the copy function that is located right up here in the corner. So you'll see in this report we all worked on today, the 725 report that we synced, you'll see that I can't do anything with it anymore. It is read only, but my copy function is still there. So you can go ahead and report that we worked on today for tomorrow to save that time. Can you access reports that were typed in using a laptop? Again, that goes back to you being the user that can access your reports, right? So for mobile inspector users, we are highly encouraging you to use mobile inspector on a phone or a tablet. But yes, if you're on a laptop, you would see, I'm assuming if you're on a laptop, you're probably accessing Ashware project. Yes, you would see the report you created in mobile inspector back in Ashware project. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but as I understand the question, that's my answer right now. If I didn't answer it, please raise it for me. If I understand correctly, you cannot sync a draft report. Second, a locked report is essentially submitted for approval on the web-based screens. Not exactly. So it's a two-step process because when you lock it, it makes the report read-only. So locked and submitted for approval are not the same thing when it comes to mobile inspector. Correct. In your first part, you cannot sync a draft report. The report has to go from draft to locked. So as you can see, if I add a report right now for 725, let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit so it's easier to see here. I have too many things going on here. Okay, so if I add a report here for 725, let's go ahead and make it 724 so that way our date is different and we all understand what's going on here. If I come to my sync tab, you'll see the 724 report is a draft report. So if I hit sync now, no, that report's not going to go anywhere. Once you're done with your report, you must lock it and then sync it. You can't just sync out a draft report. Are we going to be required to use this? That question, I'm going to kick it to South Carolina on that one. I don't know if Douglas, you can highlight.
I can handle them.
Okay.
Ricky. Yeah, in conversations with Travis and the construction team, no one's going to be required to use mobile inspector. It's being provided for your convenience. If you're comfortable using direct access to Ashware Project on a mobile device, and you've got the connectivity to be able to do so, and you prefer working that way, you can certainly work that way. This is being provided for those people who would like to use the simplified user interface, and for those situations when you're in a remote area and you have zero connectivity and you need the ability to completely work offline and then synchronize a daily work report once you're able to access the internet.
Thank you, Terry. Are deleted records gone for good, or do they hold in another temporary location just in case for a certain amount of time? I'm going to answer this by saying only delete it if you want to delete your record. Yeah. If you are 100% sure about deleting your record, that's when you want to delete it. as you can see, there's nowhere for me to go to then recover that record, right? So only delete it if you did not mean to create that report. Yeah. There's no way to start a daily work report in Ashware project and continue in Mobile Inspector. Great question. True. There is no way to do that. You will see that report in Mobile Inspector, but it's going to show up like this. It's going to look like a check mark in the cloud, but it's going to be read-only. When is this going live? As I understand it, South Carolina has indicated as soon as possible. We're working to get together some collaterals for them, some training materials, but I understand it to be as soon as possible. So definitely work with South Carolina DOT to get up to speed on that, get the URL to navigate to Mobile Inspector. And I can't say for sure when the training materials are going to be completed, but as soon as possible, hopefully by the end of next week. Will we be notified when a note is added to a report? You mentioned them giving us notes in the note function. So the note is added by you when you're making the report. So there's not really a notification there. That's for you to use to add a note, a DWR note to your report. If your report is rejected by the office and sent back to you, it's not that you're going to be notified that they added a note to it, although you should probably be in the habit of checking that. That is a practice South Carolina has indicated they're going to be using. So that's going to be more of a learned process for you, that if you have a rejected report, go ahead and check to see if they put a note on it. Otherwise, contact the office. It. What you will get told, though, is the next time this is another reason why you should sync your device before you start your day. When you sync your device, if a rejected report comes in, not only does it hit this bucket, but a pop-up is gonna appear, and it's gonna let you know a report has been rejected. So it's really tough to miss it. My daily reports go through my PM RE currently. Will this eliminate their interaction between myself and South Carolina DOT? I don't believe so. As far as I understand it, all of your normal business processes are still in place. This is just giving you a tool to making your reports easier while in the field. So instead of doing it in Ashware project, you do it in Mobile Inspector. They get there eventually when you sync them out. So as I understand it, those processes should not be changing. All right, let's see. Can you edit one submitted by a laptop? I'm not really sure what that means. If the intent of your question is to edit it back in Mobile Inspector, once it's submitted, you can't edit it unless it's rejected to you. When you say from a laptop, that just because you're on a laptop doesn't change the functionality. Once the report is synced from Mobile Inspector, in order to edit that report, it has to be rejected and sent back to you. So you want to make sure your report is done before you sync it. You're completely done with all your observations. You lock the report, you sync it, you move on to your next task. If that happens to get rejected, that's when you can edit it. Now, if you access Ashware project later, I imagine if that's something you're doing, yeah, you can open up that report. I don't know if that's a business process South Carolina has for you guys to do that. We'd talk to them about that. But you're not prevented from accessing that report once an Ashware project and making changes to it.
Ricky, I think that might possibly be a repeat of an earlier question, meaning that I interpret that question to mean I'm in the office, I'm using my laptop computer or desktop computer, and I go into Ashware project and I start a daily work report. Can I then go to the field and continue working on DWR?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Terry. If that is the intent of the question, yeah, no, that you won't be able to do that. You have to start and finish that report in Mobile Inspector. The pictures we take will be attached to the daily work report automatically. Yes, they will. Will picture metadata be recorded when taking a picture inside the application? Not at this time. We do have a TMR, I believe, to get some detailed metadata into photos that are added via Mobile Inspector. I can have Terry follow up with that TMR to Travis to endorse that, but not at this time.
For anyone unfamiliar with the acronym TMR, I'll just answer that real quick. A TMR is a three-letter acronym we use for a ticketed modification request. In essence, it's a change request to the way a product currently functions. And it's a process that we have to go through to get those things approved by AASHTO and our development team.
Thanks, Terry. Do I have the ability to input into Mobile Inspector and then go to my laptop and change to draft and edit it before submitting for approval? Yes. However, you're missing one important thing here. If you started the report in Mobile Inspector, then you go to your laptop. I'm assuming when you say go to your laptop and change the draft, you're talking about back in Ashware Project. Because only in Ashware Project do you submit it for approval. I guess depending on, I don't want to get in the weeds here. I think this question has already been answered. If you start a report in Mobile Inspector on your device, you have to finish it on that device. That's really the best way to answer that. So now going to a laptop, you're not going to see that draft report. So you have to start and finish it on the device that you're recording it on. What is the go live date, or is Mobile Inspector already available? It's already available. Mobile Inspector has been around for since 2015. It's continually enhanced. We enhance it every 6 months with new features. Sometimes it's just maintenance releases, but we're constantly trying to add functionality that is valuable to the users. So you'll actually come September, October-ish, you'll actually see some different features in here than you would see, let's say, in August. So we do try to keep up with the product and continually enhance it, but it is already available. South Carolina will work with you to see when they want you to go live and start using it. Will a video similar to this webinar be provided for training purposes? Great question. I have submitted a overview video to South Carolina already. That can be shared out via a Zoom link and a password. In addition, I believe Travis is going to use this webinar. We're probably going to cut all of this question and answer out at the end. That's why we did it this way. That way, the first part was just me going through the product. And I imagine he's going to want to share this out or post this somewhere for you guys to view as well. So those two resources should be available in addition to a training guide we're developing. We have had inspectors during the trial period ask for a generate PDF option from the Mobile Inspector app. Will that be added? It's a great question. I have tinkered with the idea to be able to do some sort of export PDF from Mobile Inspector. I am curious to know, sorry, your question has already got removed, so I don't know your name at the moment. I'm curious to know just exactly what you want exported when you say that. Is it a whole copy of everything that was on the daily work report? Is it certain areas of the daily work report? I'm curious to know that. If you can get that information to Travis or Terry, I would love to know just how detailed of that functionality you want, because I have been entertaining this idea to, again, be able to export it. The idea would be, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily go to Ashware Project. It would be like export to email. Do you anticipate having something like a map or a pin drop method of getting location? Another great question. There's a TMR for this. Hopefully, Terry is recording every single time I say this. Iowa DOT has requested some similar functionality. So happy to explore that. I can't guarantee it, but I wouldn't be surprised if something like that is added to the product in the future. Thanks, Travis. Travis will be providing go live details tomorrow. Am I the only one who's not figured out how to install this app? It's not in the Apple Store. Correct. It's not in the Apple Store, Michael. This is a progressive web application. You cannot download it from any store, Apple or Android. You access Mobile Inspector through a URL, like a web address, and then you anchor it to your desktop, or excuse me, I have it anchored to my desktop. You anchor it to your phone or your tablet, and it will appear like an app tile, just like any of your other app tiles. I asked the PDF question. I'm looking for the entire DWR exported as a PDF. Yeah. So yeah, good to know. definitely interested in that functionality. We can definitely get, I may have that already written up. If not, I can definitely recommend, again, Travis to submit that. Always stronger when it comes from an agency. And we can explore that functionality too. And then I'm happy if you guys get this feedback to Travis, I'm happy to meet with him about this functionality. Our account managers meet with the agency about functionality quite often. It eventually gets back to me. We explore it. We get it into the product where it makes sense. One more thing I want to point out, just a little, behind the scenes football here. The new release coming this fall, one of the functionalities is going to be an in-app feedback feature. This is production mobile inspector, so you're not seeing that in the moment. But when we release a new version this fall, you will have the opportunity to leave feedback directly in the app that will come directly to me. So all of these great ideas you guys have, all of these things, anything good, bad, indifferent, what would make your job easier, please let us know using that in-app feature. Can I start a DWR on the mobile app and finish it on my laptop? I know this is a common question. No, you cannot. You have to start and finish the report on the device that you originated on. So if you open your phone and you start a daily work report, if you flip open your laptop later and try to access Mobile Inspector on your laptop, you will not see that. Mobile Inspector is distinct on every device. So it does carry a different device ID on every single device. So it will not know that that report is in draft there. It will show synced reports later on because once they hit Asheware project, your Mobile Inspector instance will show you all the reports you've created for that contract. But there's not interoperability between one device and another. Okay, that was 22 questions. I think I got them all. Let me just do a quick check at some of these bottom ones here. Yep. Okay, well, and I'm happy to stay on if anybody else is. I know there's a lot of us here. This was scheduled to go, I think, till 3 o'clock. I'm happy to hang in there and answer any questions you guys have, by the way. For those of you taking off, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it and great questions. Is there any way to query data to see if something has been partially posted by yourself or another inspector? So it's not going to allow you to partially post in Mobile Inspector. You either sync the report or you don't sync the report. There's not a middle ground. It's all or nothing. So there is not a way. I guess to answer that question, there is not a way to query data in Mobile Inspector really anyway. But you just, since this seems to be a theme, it's all or nothing. You have a draft report, you have a locked report, you have a synced report, right? Once it's synced, it's gone. Thank you. You're very welcome. If that's the case, Travis, that answer is yes. A synced report back in Asheware project 100% can be edited. Yep, absolutely. Depending on whether you have a material set or not, dictates whether the report comes in draft or pending approval in Asheware project. So if there's one material set on the record or that you've selected, or no material sets selected, but there's one on the report on the item posting, the bridge is going to auto select that material set for you. Those reports are going to come in as pending approval. The only time a report's going to come in as draft is if there's more than one material set on an item and you haven't selected any of them. That report's going to come in as draft. That is just standard Asheware project functionality. But even if the report comes in and pending approval, you can change it to draft if you need to add something back in Asheware project, so on and so forth. So yes, it's not completely off limits. It just needs to be done back in Asheware project, either by yourself or it needs to be rejected and sent back to your Mobile Inspector if it's not being done by yourself. Great questions. Again, happy to keep them coming. I still see about 3/4 of us are still on the call, so I'll hang out until it's just me and Terry and Douglas. So happy to hang out here, and any last minute questions, fire them away.
Yeah, we can keep the webinar going for a couple more minutes and see if we get any more questions. If not, we'll go ahead and maybe someone's still getting the courage together to put their question in. But now we got, thanks, Ben. Glad you enjoyed it. It looks like we're good for questions. Ricky, thank you so much. Great job.
Thanks.
And thank all of the attendees. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you found that informative. And I guess we'll go ahead and close out the webinar at this time. Again, thank you for attending.